They call it Rikers Island, a name that echoes through every New York courtroom, whispered with fear, anger, and disbelief. But behind those walls, beyond the razor wire and the skyline of Manhattan shimmering in the distance, lies something far darker than just a jail. This is a world built on punishment, chaos, and survival. A world where time slows down and humanity fades away. Rikers isn't a prison meant for the worst of the worst. It's a jail complex where people await trial, often still legally innocent. Yet what happens inside feels nothing like justice. Imagine an island cut off from the city, yet still close enough for inmates to see the lights of freedom just across the East River. Close enough to feel hope, but too far to ever touch it. From the moment you step off the transport bus, the air changes. You can feel it, that mix of fear, sweat, and hopelessness that seems to live in the concrete itself. Guards watch from high towers. Inmates shout from cell to cell. And somewhere in the chaos, a young person takes their first step into hell, not knowing that Rikers will mark them forever. Because on this island, survival isn't guaranteed. Rikers Island was never designed for rehabilitation. It was designed for control. Built in the 1930s, it was supposed to be a modern solution to overcrowded city jails. But decades later, the system rotted from the inside. Neglect, corruption, and violence turned it into something closer to a battlefield than a correctional facility. For years, reports surfaced of inmates beaten unconscious, officers turning a blind eye, and medical care so poor that some never made it out alive. It wasn't just the inmates who suffered. Guards, too, lived in fear, not of the people they watched, but of the system itself. Inside Rikers, there are no real sides. Only those trying to make it to the next sunrise. The sounds never stop. Metal doors slamming, alarms blaring, the muffled cries from distant cells. Every sound is a reminder, you're not free. And worse, you might never be the same again. In 2010, a 16-year-old boy named Kalief Browder was arrested for allegedly stealing a backpack. No conviction. No trial. But he was sent here, to Rikers Island. What happened next would expose the horror of this place to the entire world. Kalief spent over 1,000 days on the island, nearly 2 years of that in solitary confinement. A teenager locked in a cell the size of a closet, alone, for 23 hours a day. He was beaten by other inmates, abused by guards, starved, forgotten. His mother begged for his release, but the system moved too slow. By the time the charges were dropped, Kalief wasn't the same boy who went in. He left Rikers, but Rikers never left him. His story became the symbol of everything wrong with the island. A symbol of how easily the innocent can be swallowed by a system designed to break, not rebuild. Step inside one of Rikers' housing units, and you'll understand what control really means. The walls are cracked. The air smells of sweat, bleach, and desperation. Fights break out without warning, sometimes over food, sometimes over nothing at all. Correctional officers outnumbered 10 to 1. Their only power comes from intimidation. And the inmates? They adapt. They form groups, alliances, and enemies. Here, trust can get you hurt. Silence can save your life. The stronger prey on the weak. And the weak. They disappear quietly, their names known only to those who remember their screams. Rikers isn't just a jail. It's a living organism, feeding on anger, fear, and neglect. And once you're part of it, it's almost impossible to escape. For many inmates, Rikers isn't a temporary stop. It becomes their entire world. Some are stuck here for months, even years, waiting for trials that never come. Others lose everything, families, jobs, their sanity, before they ever see a judge. Many of them can't afford bail. Some are innocent. But on Rikers, innocence doesn't protect you. You start to lose track of time. Days bleed into nights. Nights into nightmares. The screams, the fights, the constant tension, it changes you. It makes you see the world differently. It makes you realize that justice, in places like this, isn't about truth. It's about survival. For decades, Rikers Island operated like a city within a city, one with its own laws, its own language, and its own rulers. But the real power didn't always belong to the officials. It belonged to those who controlled what happened when the cameras weren't rolling. Inside those walls, corruption wasn't an accident, it was tradition. Officers smuggled in contraband, from cigarettes to cell phones, even weapons. Favors were traded for silence. And if someone broke the unwritten rules, both inmate and guard could disappear into solitary, forgotten. The Department of Correction promised reform. They talked about new training, better oversight, transparency. But every new plan ended the same way. Headlines fade, budgets get cut, and nothing changes. The truth was simple. Rikers wasn't broken. It was designed to work this way. Each act of brutality, each cover-up, each ignored cry for help, it all kept the island running. Because chaos is cheaper than change. And silence is easier than accountability. Few talk about the women held on Rikers Island. But their stories cut just as deep. Inside the Rose M. Singer Center, women face a different kind of suffering, one often hidden behind the island's larger headlines. Many arrive pregnant, addicted, or already survivors of trauma. And inside, they face another nightmare. Reports spoke of harassment, neglect, and isolation. Some gave birth while shackled. Others were denied medical care until it was too late. One former inmate described it simply: Rikers doesn't just take your freedom, it takes your voice. And when you're a woman on Rikers, your voice rarely echoes beyond those walls. The system doesn't listen. The public doesn't see. But the scars, physical and emotional, never fade. To understand Rikers, you have to understand one brutal truth: the guards are prisoners too. Every day, they walk through the same gates, hear the same screams, and live under the same fear. Many start with good intentions. But this place changes people. Veteran officers call it the island effect. The longer you work here, the harder it becomes to feel human. The constant tension, the violence, the threats, it eats away at you until survival becomes instinct. Some officers lash out, becoming the very thing they swore to fight against. Others just shut down. They stop caring, stop feeling. And when that happens, brutality becomes normal, just another part of the job. So while the headlines call them monsters, the truth is darker. On Rikers, everyone is trapped, just in different ways. In 2021, Rikers reached its breaking point. The pandemic exposed everything the city had ignored for years: overcrowding, staff shortages, and conditions so inhumane they shocked the world. Inmates staged hunger strikes. Officers stopped showing up for work. Families protested outside the gates, holding pictures of loved ones who never made it home. The city called it a crisis. But those inside called it what it really was: collapse. Videos leaked of cells filled with trash and sewage. Men sleeping on the floor, sick and untreated. People locked in for days without food or showers. For the first time in decades, the public saw what Rikers really was: not a correctional facility, but a humanitarian disaster. And from that chaos came one demand: close Rikers. But closing the island wasn't going to be simple. Too many depended on it. Too many wanted it gone, and too many wanted it to stay. In 2017, New York City made a promise: Rikers Island would shut down by 2027. A new era of smaller, safer borough-based jails would take its place. Politicians called it progress. Activists called it justice. But those who lived through Rikers knew better. You can close the buildings. You can change the name. But how do you erase a system that's been built on pain for nearly a century? For many, Rikers isn't just a location, it's a symbol. A reflection of everything broken in the criminal justice system. Poverty, race, power, corruption, all trapped within a few square miles of land surrounded by cold, dark water. The island may one day be empty. But its ghosts? They'll linger long after the last cell door slams shut. When the city announced Rikers would close, hope spread fast. For once, it felt like the nightmare might finally end. But the truth, as always, was buried beneath paperwork, politics, and power. Years passed. Budgets shifted. Plans changed. And the island remained open. The promise of justice turned into another headline. Construction delays, funding battles, and fierce opposition from local communities kept pushing the deadline further away. The year 2027 was supposed to be the end of Rikers Island. But as we got closer, a harsh truth became clear: Rikers isn't ready to die. Inside its walls, the same cycle of violence, overcrowding, and neglect rages on. The same forgotten people are left waiting for a freedom that never seems to arrive. For them, talk of reform is just empty noise, because change doesn't reach their cells. It doesn't reach the ones nobody is watching. And so, the island continues to breathe, its heartbeat slow, steady, and cruel. On Rikers, silence has a price. If you speak up, you risk retaliation. If you stay quiet, the abuse continues. Whistleblowers, both inmates and officers, have tried to expose the truth. They leak footage, they write letters, but most are silenced. One officer famously said, "You don't survive on Rikers by doing what's right. You survive by doing what's safe." This culture of silence protects everyone except the victims. Inmates vanish after incidents. Reports go missing. When families demand answers, they're met with the same cold response: it's under investigation. But on Rikers, investigations don't lead to justice. They lead to cover-ups, burying another name, another story, under the weight of fear. Beneath the island, a network of tunnels exists that few ever see. Old corridors connect abandoned buildings, storage rooms become makeshift cells, and underground paths are used to move inmates away from the public eye. Those who've been there describe a world without light, without sound, and without witnesses. Some call it a rumor, but in a place built on secrecy, even rumors can feel real. These tunnels have become a symbol of Rikers itself, a maze with no exit, where every story and every life is swallowed by the dark, leaving only echoes behind. Perhaps that's the scariest part, not the violence you see, but the horrors hidden where no one dares to look. Every year, the city releases reports filled with statistics meant to show progress. But numbers don't tell the full story. They don't show the faces of those who died waiting for trial, the scars of solitary confinement, or the families who never stop calling, hoping someone will finally pick up. Between 2021 and 2025 alone, over 50 people died inside Rikers. Many took their own lives. Many died from neglect, all while supposedly under reform. Each name marks another failure of a system built to contain, not to care. Each death is a reminder that Rikers isn't just a jail. It's a machine that feeds on those society has forgotten. But even in the deepest darkness, voices are rising. Former inmates have begun to share their stories, on camera, online, and in the streets. Families march across the bridge to Rikers, holding photos and candles, chanting the same 3 words: close it down. Documentaries and podcasts are shining a light on what the city wants to hide, and slowly, people are starting to see that this isn't just about crime. It's about humanity. Every story shared chips away at the wall of silence, reminding the world that Rikers is a wound that has been open for far too long. The official records call them incidents. But those who were there call them something else. Every few months, a new name appears in a report: an inmate found unresponsive. The cause is always under investigation, but inside, everyone knows what that means. Sometimes it's neglect, sometimes it's violence. Most of those who die inside Rikers were never even convicted of a crime. They were just waiting, stuck between innocence and oblivion. One former inmate said it best: "You don't serve time in Rikers. Rikers serves time on you." There are parts of Rikers that no longer exist on the map. Old units shut down after riots and scandals, now quietly repurposed. Places like the Boat, a floating barge jail, or the Old North Infirmary, where sick inmates were left waiting for treatment that rarely came. Survivors describe endless nights, with no sound but the hum of fluorescent lights and the cries of men praying for dawn. The cells and corridors still stand, monuments to suffering, hidden behind locked gates. When cameras finally made it inside, the world saw what officials could no longer hide: shackled men sleeping on floors, cells overflowing with trash, and the blank faces of officers who had seen it all too many times. The footage went viral, turning a local story into a symbol of national shame. But once the headlines faded, the cameras left, and Rikers went back to what it's always been: a world that thrives in the dark. Every day, buses still cross the Rikers Island bridge, bringing new faces into the system. Inside, people wait, not for freedom, but for any sign that time is still passing. But Rikers erases time. The longer you stay, the harder it is to remember who you were. You might leave Rikers, but Rikers never leaves you. The island was supposed to close, but it fights to stay open, protected by contracts, jobs, and the power of those who profit from its pain. They talk of building new, smaller jails, but the blueprints look eerily familiar. You can move the walls, but if you don't change the system, the story stays the same. Rikers is a legacy of fear and forgotten lives, and every delay in its closure makes that legacy stronger. They say Rikers Island refuses to die because the world outside still needs a place to hide its guilt. For every person who's walked through its gates, inmates, officers, doctors, wardens, there are stories that haunt those who dare to remember. Take Officer Raymond Torres. He started in the late 90s, young, disciplined, and proud to wear the uniform. He genuinely believed he was making a difference. But Rikers has a way of testing everyone. Over time, Raymond changed. He stopped sleeping, stopped smiling. His days became a blur of fights, screams, and blood-soaked paperwork. Inmates started calling him Ghost. He barely spoke, never laughed, just walked the tiers with hollow eyes and an empty heart. After 20 years, he retired. A few months later, he was found alone in his car. His note had just 5 words: "I never really left Rikers." His story is a quiet reminder that the island doesn't just take lives, it takes pieces of them that never come back. Then there's Darnell Hines, a 24-year-old sent to Rikers in 2023 for a minor parole violation. His hearing kept getting delayed. Weeks turned into months. Then one day, he was just gone. The official report said he was transferred, but no other facility had him. No paper trail. His mother came to the visitor's gate every single week, and every week, the answer was the same: he's not on the list. Months later, she received his belongings, a pair of shoes and a Bible. No explanation. Some whisper he was involved in a violent incident that was covered up. Others think he died from neglect. In a place where truth is buried under bureaucracy and fear, Darnell became another ghost, another name swallowed by the island shadows. Every building on Rikers tells a story. There's a saying among former inmates: the walls remember everything. They remember the fights, the screams, the laughter that turned to silence. They remember the guards who looked away, and the ones who didn't survive long enough to look back. The paint on those walls hides decades of blood and regret. Every time the city tries to move on, the past bleeds through, reminding everyone this island doesn't forgive. And it doesn't forget. Because Rikers isn't just made of concrete and steel. It's made of stories. And stories never really die. In 2024, a leaked document surfaced online, a secret ledger kept by a correctional administrator. Inside were coded, handwritten notes about unreported deaths and medical neglect spanning years. F12, medical delay, result fatal. D6, altercation, no report filed. The handwriting matched a former deputy warden who had quietly resigned a decade earlier. The ledger confirmed what activists had long claimed: the island didn't just fail people, it hid them. For some families, the dates in the ledger matched their loved ones' disappearances. Rikers wasn't just a jail, it was a graveyard of accountability. As of 2025, the city still insists Rikers will close. But delays and lawsuits tell a different story. The buses still arrive each morning, and new inmates walk through the same rusted gates. They don't know it yet, but they're stepping into a story that never ends. The system that created Rikers doesn't live on that island. It lives in the city courts, the bail system, the poverty that pushes people to the edge. Close Rikers today, and another will rise tomorrow unless we change what feeds it. Across the water, Manhattan's skyline glitters, a cruel mirage of freedom. From a distance, Rikers looks small, a dark shape surrounded by light. But those who know its history understand how large its shadow truly is. It's a wound carved into the heart of New York, a reminder of what happens when we believe some people are disposable. Even when the gates finally close, the island will still breathe. It will still whisper its truth. Because you can leave Rikers, but Rikers never truly leaves you. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, please consider sharing it. Subscribe for more content that brings important stories to light.